Hello everyone, welcome back. I have a double page scrapbook layout for you today. As you can see, we're going to be working with the Secret Garden collection. I did get the entire bundle, so I've got all the cardstock, I've got all the beautiful pattern papers, and I have some scraps because this will be the second layout I have created. And there are going to be a ton of photos on this layout, a whole bunch. So this will be a good design if you have a big event with lots of photos. Now this is a collaboration with a few of my friends from the creative design team because Jema shared what she was working on and I responded back, oh my goodness, you're not going to believe this. I have the same photos planned with the same paper and the same stamp sets. So great minds think alike. And Jema said, well, why don't we collaborate? So that's what we're going to do, and everybody's going to share their take on this particular set of photos. I'm going to lay down some French vanilla cardstock because that is the coordinating color in this collection. And I do want to apologize for this big bandage on my hand. Not to worry, but I did take a nasty bite from a cat. I work in the vet industry. I've been in the business for close to 30 years now, and this is the worst bite I've ever had. It just, yeah, it happened so fast, and I'm on antibiotics, and the swelling's going down for a few days. I really couldn't use my hand, so it's been painful. But yeah, we're here. The show must go on. I teased my boss. I'm like, hey, I can't scrapbook, and I need pain and suffering compensation. He thought that was pretty funny. But yeah, you can see it is still pretty swollen compared to my other hand, and I hope that's not too distracting for you. Earlier this year, I took a trip to Vancouver to visit all of my friends on the creative design team, and we went over to Victoria and had tea at the Empress, and that is what I'm documenting today. I feel like these beautiful kind of old-fashioned florals go really nicely with the feel of the Empress, and there's lots of different colors in these photos. So you can see Andrea's wearing, it looks kind of coral here like Jema's shirt, but in this particular lighting and angle, it is definitely more of a pinky tone, which is what her shirt was. You can see that in the photo here. I do have a little ink spot on my picture. I'm going to attempt to camouflage that with a embellishment, but if I can't, I'll have to reprint that photo. So tons of different photos here, and in fact, I have more I'm going to be bringing in, so stay tuned for that. Beautiful shots of the little goodies they served with tea. I think it was Katie who took these, and she did such a beautiful job capturing all of those little delicious treats. So here's the way the Secret Garden paper works. You have different colorways. So we have the same pattern, but you have peach, like it's peach, and then on the opposite side is yellow. Now I've already used the other one of these, so I only have a scrap, and that may be a problem for the design I'm trying to work with today. You also have 2 full sheets of the periwinkle, or we could go with the glacier. And I was off camera playing around with my different color options because, as I said, you know, there's a lot of different colors in these photos, and originally I was thinking the peach florals because that would complement Andrea and Jema's shirts. Let me bring those in. I'm just going to lay these out roughly. Now this is going the wrong way, and I don't even think it would be a large enough piece, but I'm kind of showing you the design I would be working with, and then I will switch out the colors so you can see the different options. So basically these are going to kind of sit over here, and lots of photos on this one. And then we'll make kind of a grid here. I want to get everybody enjoying their tea, so that one may not be there. I think I want tea photos, sipping tea on the front here. And then we have, these are all 3x4s. We got a 4x4 and a 4x5.5. So this is, you know, my initial thought, because again, the peaches really tie in, but it just wasn't quite right. And again, this isn't a big enough piece to do what I'm wanting to do. So I'm going to switch these out. Here is the glacier version of that, and although it's gorgeous, I really don't think it does anything for the photos. Here's the periwinkle version, and I am liking this. It's softer and it's not competing with the photos. So it also does, you'll notice Julie's jacket here, the tones are very complementary to this, and then in this photo as well. There is a lot of yellow in these pictures, especially when you start bringing in the little goodies. So I could bring in yellow by focusing on, bringing out the yellow in these flower centers. Let me grab this piece. I do want to run a strip across the bottom here, so that's where we could possibly bring in some of that yellow. And do you see how it just instantly picks up on the details in the photo? So there's one more version. Here's the yellow version, and again, the yellow looks beautiful with a lot of these photos, but I think it's a little bit brighter, a little bit richer color palette, and it kind of competes as to where the periwinkle is softer and lets the photo stand out. It's not competing with them. We have all the different colors make the photos a bit busier, so we want a more muted background. Now, you can always turn photos black and white, but I don't want to do that with these. I feel like it might lose something if I make them black and white. I went ahead and cut this piece into 4 by 12, and then we have 8 by 12, and then that's going to sit across the center. And then this one I trimmed down to 10 inches by 12 and then cut it at 7 and 5. So in hindsight, I could have used the peach florals because I only needed one piece of 12 by 12 pattern paper to achieve this. I'm going to go ahead and ink up the edges in charcoal. I chose charcoal because it's a softer color than black, and I think it'll go nicely with this paper collection. Now, I just gave you all the reasons why I vetoed the peach roses and the yellow roses, but I do think either one of those color palettes looked really nice with my photos. I just think the periwinkle was the best choice for what I am envisioning, and I kind of have another set of photos I'm considering using with the peach paper, the peach roses, so that kind of helped me decide. Sometimes us paper crafters suffer from analysis paralysis, and we can spend way too much time deciding on pattern papers and colors and embellishments, and sometimes you just have to make a choice and go for it. So I'm bringing my photos back in. Now, this little grid of 3 by 4 photos over here, I want to mat on some paper. So I'm trying out the yellow. This is Honey Butter, and it's a pattern paper cardstock. Yeah, it's just not quite right. Let's go with this green pattern here, and I do like the green, and I'm going to go with that. So this is 6.5 by 8.5, and this will anchor all of these smaller photos and kind of group them together. So bring these back in here. I have cut a photo mat from Periwinkle cardstock. This is the same color in the florals in the background there. And then this is just a scrap. I'm just trying to get a visual for what this might look like. I also have this green one here. And you know what? I want to bring yellow in, but I think it's going to have to be in the embellishments. And speaking of which, let's go ahead and get some of our embellishments ready. This is an all-purpose mat. I'm just bringing this in so I could do a little ink blending. I've gone ahead and die cut several of the florals from the Secret Garden thin cut set, and we're going to ink those with Honey Butter. This is that thin cut set. These are designed to layer together, and they are just so pretty. I've also cut some of the leaves. You have a couple different sizes here, and they're very detailed. I just love these dies. So I'm going to add just a little glow of the Honey Butter to the center of these. And I've obviously sped this up quite a bit, but just add a little bit of color. Or you could cut these from yellow cardstock if you wanted to skip this step and just have your whole flower in yellow. I'm going for a soft look, so that's why I just want a hint of color. So I showed this in my last video. These are super easy to adhere together. This one has a little cut and the little petal layers in between. I'm going to put a dollop of glue on the back and then adhere this to this base. And you get this 3-layer gorgeous floral. This one you can add 3 layers or you can just go with 2. You can kind of change them up a little bit. And now I also have this little tiny scatter stamp from the Secret Garden stamp set that makes a nice little floral center. So it's just a collection of dots. I'm actually going to repeat that several times to make those a little bit more impactful. Aren't those pretty? I'm going to go ahead and clean this up, and off camera I will create several more of these peonies so we can place them all over the layout. I think it's going to be really pretty. So we do have a couple different sizes, and there's also one that makes like a little bud. I just didn't make any for this particular layout. So I'm going to create a cluster in this corner, and I know I want another cluster up here and then one below my photo here. I have picked out some stamp sets from my stash to further embellish this page, but the florals are the largest element in the embellishment cluster, so I'm just kind of starting with those. As I mentioned, we were in Victoria having tea at the Empress, and although we did a lot of amazing things on this girls' trip, this was definitely a highlight for me, and it was beautiful. We got up really early and caught the ferry boat over to Victoria and spent the whole day there. We spent several hours having tea. It was just such a fun experience. I actually did this with my mom and grandma when I was just a little girl, so it was really fun to come back as an adult and experience it again. Now, here's some stamps that I pulled from my stash. This is called My Cup of Tea. You can see that great big teacup there. This one is called That's the Tea. And then this one here is called Ooh La La Macaron. And they actually served these while we were there at the tea house, so I thought this is going to be perfect. I'm going to go ahead and start by stamping out our little macarons. You can see I've already got some in here from a previous project, but those aren't going to match. So we will stamp some new ones and color them to work with our layout. Now these are all retired stamp sets from Close to My Heart, so you may have them in your collection, but if not, I hope that will give you some ideas for things that you may have that will work for a similar layout if you want to recreate this for your own photos. So I'm stamping this in intense black ink. I'm going to let that dry before we color it. And then I thought I would stamp, I've got room down here on the paper. So just to utilize that, I'm going to stamp the little teapot here from That's the Tea. Let me pick that up with the Misty Door. And let me make sure you're back in the corner. And I'm stamping this one in Pine, which is one of the green colors in this Secret Garden collection. I do want to mention that if you've been following me for a while, you know there were limitations on who could purchase the Close to My Heart branded product that Stampin' Up! Was carrying. You had to have already been an established customer with Close to My Heart or a former Close to My Heart maker. Well, as of today, if you're watching this on Tuesday the 20th, they have lifted those limitations and anyone can purchase any of the Close to My Heart branded products. So the inventory was very limited to begin with, so things are going to go fast. So if you love it, definitely don't wait. But I thought that that was exciting news for those of you who haven't been able to purchase this. I have selected a couple marker colors to color in our little macarons here. We've got Boho Blue, Light and Dark in Stampin' Blends, and this is the Spectrum Noir TriBlend in light yellow. So I love my Spectrum Noir markers. They've got 3 colors in one, so it makes it really easy and takes the guesswork out of coloring, and you can get that really nice shaded look and add some depth. I am starting with the darkest color. I'm going around the edges there. I want my highlight to be kind of in the center because the cookie's round, so that rounded part will be what's catching the light. So now we're moving to the medium and coloring in a little further from the edges, and then I'll finish off the center with the lightest color. The Spectrum Noir markers all have bullet tips for each of the colors, and it's nice for coloring in those little tiny areas. And the Stampin' Blends have a bullet tip on one side and a brush tip on the other. So I'm going to start with, we've got the light. I'm still playing around with these. I'm learning them. Let's actually start with the dark. I'm using the brush tip, and I'm using flick-like motions to kind of drag the color in from the edges. And I do want to say I like the brush tip because you can color a large area very quickly, which is nice. So I will color up the top and bottom macaron with these. You can kind of see how you can get the shaded look with the 2 different Stampin' Blends. The Stampin' Blends come in a set, so when you buy the Boho Blue, for example, which is what I'm using here, you get both the light and the dark marker in one pack. So you can see the shading detail there. I'm going to go ahead and die cut all of these out, and to make our cookies even more special, I'm going to add the Pearlized enamel effects in white to this center, and I'll show you a close-up of that later on here in the video. That does take a bit to dry, so be mindful of that. But here's my little teapot and teacups, and let me bring this back into frame here. I still have more photos to add to this layout, so stay tuned to see how I am going to accomplish that, but I want to create an embellishment cluster here. Now, to make these stand out even more, I dug out a doily die from my stash. This is from Close to My Heart. And you know how I love to use shapes to kind of ground and anchor my embellishments and help them stand out so they're not kind of lost on the background. I think that's pretty cute. Now I've also stamped and die cut our large cup here. And I fussy cut this yellow floral from the pattern paper. And this is perfect. The scale of this floral cluster is perfect for this cup. Now I'm going to do a little paper piecing. I stamped and cut out the inner portion on pattern paper so we can give our cup a little bit of fun character there. One thing I like to do is add a little bit of shading. So I've got my gray granite Stampin' Blend marker here, and I'm adding the tiniest bit of shadowing underneath the cup where it's sitting on the saucer. So let's go ahead and glue this layer together. I love paper piecing my stamped images like this. I think it's a lot of fun, but you could also use your markers to color in your stamped images if you don't want to do the paper piecing. I'm going to go ahead and adhere these together so I can move them around my page and see where I want them. I still need to, I want my title in this area. I better bring my title in before I get carried away with my embellishments. The Happy Memories is from the Coordinating Secret Garden sticker sheet. This is definitely taking the easy route. I do like the title. I like the scripty font. Happy Memories definitely works, but I do have some other ideas to try as well. So I'm thinking about maybe framing in this photo, but that's looking, I don't know, it's kind of big for that space there. So we might have to kind of switch that around a bit, or maybe cut off the bottom cookie so it's not quite so big. I really want to use this cup, so let's try this over here in this area. And you know what? Rather than the doily, I need a little bit bigger of a solid area. So let's try this circle. I cut this out with my Spotlight on Nature dies, and then we can maybe move our teapot and teacups up here to this area. That's pretty cute. I think I'm going to go with that. Now I still have more photos to add, so surprise, this is going to be an interactive layout. I've got 2 additional photos and then 3 more photos. I am going to glue these together. The back side of this one was that glacier color and I don't want that. So we are going to add an 8x12 flip flap, which at the time of filming this, Stampin' Up! Did have some of those available, but as I mentioned, you know, once they have lifted the limitations on the Close to My Heart product, things are going to go quickly. So I will show you how the flip flap works here in a moment. Now, typically I would put my embellishment cluster over the top like this, but because I'm using a flip flap, I can't really do that. But it does look nice here when you open up the flip flap. You want that to look good underneath as well. I'm rethinking my title, so I turned to my Cricut and created a title in Cricut Design Space. I will leave the font listed in the description box below, so you can find that information there. And this title says Tea Time. Now, I usually do print and cut, but this is actually layered cardstock. I have honey butter against a white background. I'm still thinking this area is a bit too cluttered, so I'm going to swap this out for a flower with a smaller footprint and then just maybe tuck these down ever so slightly. I feel like that's looking better already. I want to repeat the little macarons somewhere else on the layout, so I stamped another stack of them. And just to change up the look, I cut off the top ones. Now we have a single cookie, this little tea bag there. And again, you want to make sure when you lift up your flip flap that it's going to look good underneath as well. This brings a pop of that periwinkle, or in this case, boho blue, which is like a darker version of it, over to this side here. Now, Katie had this clever idea. I'm not certain I'm going to go for it, but while we were there, she called it the CDT time. For those of you that know us, we are the creative design team, also known as the CDT. So it was just so catchy and clever. I wanted to cut out a C and D to try that out. Let me hold this up so you can see I added some little tiny pearl accents around my embellishment clusters. Those were left over from a Stampin' Up! Card kit. Look at all the deliciousness on our table. So much fun. And on the inside here, I did type up my journaling. I added another little teacup and a peony flower to embellish the inside. On the cookie picture, I've added a sticker that says wonderful, and I love how we have the big grand entrance of the building and then the close-up shot of the cookies, and I added the yellow macaron there. Now, let me bring in the original layout. If you guys have been with me for a while, you will definitely remember this one because I think a lot of you really loved it. This is my Italy album, and I documented our visit to the Roman Colosseum. Now, this one has even more photos because underneath here, I used 4x6 flip-flaps to sneak in additional pictures here. So you can see this is an 8x12 flip flap, and they have an adhesive strip. You put it right onto your page protector there, and it becomes an interactive element. You can see the design is very similar. On today's layout, I added that third photo to this page here, and then I'll bring in my 8x12 piece. So you can see I pretty much copied that exactly. And on the inside, I chose to add my journaling because I didn't have quite as many photos as I did for the Colosseum. And then you can see how this one is almost identical footprint, except I added more photos again with those 4x6 flip flaps. I'm just loving those photos. So cool. Such a fun memory. I am only halfway done with my Italy album, and look how full that is. I have no idea what I'm going to do. I guess I'll cross that bridge when I get there. I am very excited to see how the others have scrapbooked these photos. We have not shared our layouts with each other, just tiny little sneak peeks, and I'm loving what I've seen so far. So it's going to be fun to see how this all unfolds. You can find all of the supplies listed in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon here on YouTube.